Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is Nigel Henry. Master Nigel is the creator of the Mastery Performance Activation System and the Change Angel Activation Movement. He works with highly gifted, deep thinking, mystical yet practical, heart-centered entrepreneurs and master teachers to activate their greatness. Welcome, Master Nigel.
Hi there, Angel Kimberley. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm great. Looking forward to this event.
Yes. So I've been working with you for maybe a month now.
Yeah.
And some of this activation that you'll be talking about.
Yes.
But do you want to kind of give everyone some background on you, like where did you come from? Where did you start? How did you get to where you're at?
Okay. I think I'll give a little brief timeline of my journey so far. Basically, I grew up in Jamaica with my grandparents until I was about 9 years old. And then I was shipped to England, where I met my real parents. I didn't know that they were I didn't know I had other parents at the time. So no, it was a major discovery. I met my mother and my father when I'm at age 9. And England was different to Jamaica, at least the countryside of Jamaica where I grew up. I grew up in London, went to school and studied engineering, software engineering, actually electrical engineering. And then I worked as a software engineer for about 15 years in London and in Europe. And then I came to America in around 95 and carried on working in that field in the Silicon Valley and generally in California. And then around Y2K, year 2000, 1999 was, I was at the peak of my career, and I was thinking, yeah, I made it. And I got a job offer actually to work for GE Capital as a senior manager. And just as I was getting the job offer, I heard a voice say to me, Nigel, well done. You fixed the bug in the computers. Now we want you to fix the bug in the humans. And I was like, okay. Actually, to be honest with you, while I was in my career, I always wanted to work more with people than with machines. So I was gradually migrating away from the programming side to the people side of things. So anyway, the point is I heard a voice and it said, and I had to make a choice between continuing in my software engineering career, which was paying pretty good in those days. The dot-com period was just beginning, and or go off and pursue this calling to help people. So I chose to help people, and that was 99, end of 99, 2000s. I began, and I just went. I used to live in a city called Oakland, California, in the Bay Area, and I started going around. Started with helping homeless people, and I was thinking, okay, I'm having a pretty good life, right? I was living in a penthouse, to be honest with you, and I was having a great life, and I was looking around, and I'm like, why are these people having a great life? What's going on? What's wrong? So I basically decided to help anyone that I met, and I started off helping this single dad with 2 kids. And I just remembered my favorite move was like this. I'd kind of go up to them and I'd look at their head and I'd open the hood like this, right? And I'd be thinking, okay, what's going on in here? And depending on how they spoke, I was like, that doesn't sound right. And I started taking notes. So this is going on for years. And literally, I realized at some point, I'm having a conversation with God. And I'm thinking, God, is this supposed to be here? can you tell me how does this, so literally I would take notes on what I saw and ask God if that was what was supposed to be there. So this carried on, and I've been doing that for 20 years now, and that's how I developed the activation methodology. And I think to bring it up to speed, I found out that there are certain types of people called angels who resonate better with my message, and that I was guided to focus on working with the angels. And so I created this thing called Change Angel Activation, which is how we met.
Yes, that is how we met.
Yeah. So that's it's like the full length version shortened over about, how many years is that? Maybe 40 years we're looking at.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so glad we met.
Yeah.
I found that Nigel has so much wisdom to give.
Mm.
So I just wanted to go back a little bit in your story. So
Yeah.
you said you grew up in Jamaica and then you moved to London. What was the contrast there? I'm sure, you actually went to London at quite a young age. So was there anything surprising to you, or what was the contrast between the two environments?
Well, the first thing is I didn't know that I was going to London. I was in a village, in like the hills and the country farmland, and we never really had much dealing with the outside world until one day there was a buzz in the village, and I heard my name, like Nigel, England, right? And I was with two of my sisters, and so they took us, just the three of us, and took us and took photos, and it was like something magical was gonna happen. And we went over on a ship, and the first thing I noticed is that all the people on the ship were like a different color.
Oh.
Right? And we'd never seen anyone else different. You know what I mean? and I'm only 9 years old, and this now I know it was Spanish. The Spanish guy comes up to me and goes, "Oh, where are you from?" And I was like, "What kind of question is that?" My brain had never been outside of my village.
Yes.
So that question didn't make any sense. And then he goes, "What language do you speak?" And I never heard that question before. Like, is there another language? What do you mean? Like, all these questions, like, assume that there were other places. And so growing up, there was no other place. So eventually when we got to England, it was a lot of changes quickly. Number one, that when we got there, that's when I realized that we were there to meet my parents. My grandmother didn't actually tell us where we were going.
That's I can't believe that she didn't tell you where you were going and why you were going. No explanation at all.
No, it's like, you're going. And, in retrospect, my parents sent for us, right? And so there's several. So there's relationship-wise, with my grandmother. We had traveled in the village together, like was my mom. And we were on the ship for 21 days, so she was my mom.
Wow.
Right? And so when we got off the ship, my dad was standing there smiling. And I'm like, "Who's that?"
Who is that?
Yeah. And she didn't explain. I don't remember explaining, but I do remember my dad literally like taking my hand and putting on the gear stick and changing the gears with my hand. And I was never been in the car before, right?
Oh my goodness, never been in a car, and you were helping him drive.
Yes. And he's looking down at me like, that's, it was like my son.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, I like him, he likes me. And I didn't know I was a smiler either. But every time I saw him, he was smiling. And now I realize I was smiling. So the journey actually to the house was very adventurous because the car overheated, and
Oh,
like we had to go run off into the countryside to go and get water to cool down the car. It was a whole drama. So Welcome to England was an adventure. And then as far as parents go, I didn't realize, it's only like about 10 years later, I realized that my mother wasn't at the port when we met.
yes.
So I met my dad, and then when I got to the house, my mother was sitting there, and I didn't know who she was. And so she was just sitting there expecting something to happen, like we're supposed to run into her arms or something. And I remember holding my grandmother's hand like this and looking at her and looking at my grandmother like that, like, what, why are we standing here?
Yes.
And then my mother blurted out, "I'm your mother." And I was, you know,
Shocked, right?
traumatized actually. And I
Yeah.
turned and cried in my grandmother's dress. I remember that. And that was how we began. That mother relationship did not start good. So then I found out my grandmother was actually leaving, going back to Jamaica without us. So in retrospect, I remember crying for 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. And I didn't know why I was crying at the time. But now I know I was crying because my grandmother was abandoning us with these strange people.
Yes.
And then also my dad he took to me and he took me everywhere.
Uh-huh.
So that made England interesting. And what I discovered about England is that it was like from village to city, like, and pollution. I broke out. My body was not used to pollution.
Oh, okay.
And because we grew up on a farm, everything we ate was organic. And so I grew up in a pure environment, and now we're in toxic London. And so I was getting sick and having allergies to everything. And then we went to school. That was weird. It was back in the 70s, and England had not, we were like, my parents were the first wave of immigrants to England. And England was not used to having people coming in. They're used to going to other people's country, but not having.
They didn't like it as well when you were going there.
Well, we had to deal with heavy duty racism, like go back to your own country, da da da. I'm like, so that was the first thing I remember is like racism and riots and people fighting all the time. But what I also remembered was learning a lot. They had libraries everywhere. Every corner was a library. And the Encyclopedia Britannica, right, became my favorite thing. And Lego and all these things. It was like my brain just expanded. And also travel. My dad worked across London, so we had to drive across the Thames to go from home to work. And I would be studying the map as he's driving. And he also said something very important. And he said, "Nigel, you got to learn to speak proper English." Because at the time, I only knew one word in English. What? What I say? What you say? And they're like, "Pardon? What you saying? Pardon?" I was like, "I don't understand."
I was wondering about that. So
Communication barrier.
what language did you speak in Jamaica?
It's English, but it was patois, broken English. And because we grew up in a village, we didn't know that there was proper English, right?
Oh, okay.
So everybody spoke Jamaican English, and it's, you don't understand it, and they didn't understand. And like, there was constant like, "Pardon, pardon." I was like, "Beg your pardon, I beg your pardon." So we had, because we're the visitors, we had to adopt. So anyway, my dad told me to learn the 8 parts of speech, the 8 parts of the English language: noun, verb, pronoun, preposition, all these things. And then what I was good at was imitation. So I used to listen to the BBC World Service or BBC Radio 4, and I could imitate their voice. And in no time at all, I had the best British accent going. So it was interesting because, again, I'm 10 now, 10, 11, it's teenage. So you're changing, your environment is different, culture is different, language is different. It's like total shift. But I think because we came young, it was children adapt to that environment.
So,
yeah.
Wow, I had no idea. I can't imagine being just brought to.
It's like it just dropped in.
Being told that they're my parents.
Exactly. It was pretty much, I think the bigger issue I learned later was the fact that my grandmother went back, because that's like your mom who raised you, and then she drops you off with these strange people and left you. And I didn't know that affected me so much, actually. I thought I just didn't like the people, at least my mother. She wasn't like my grandmother.
Right.
Deeper story there, but I think one good thing that happened was that my mind opened up instantly, and I became a learning machine, or whatever my calling was or gifts, they activated on the spot. Because, when you travel, I think there's a phrase that says travel broadeneth the mind.
Yes.
And
that.
Even on the ship, I remembered so many different experiences, because it was a cruise ship and it stopped in all these ports. And every time it stopped, you learn a different experience, a different culture. And then, you'd have to get off the boat and wander around the village. And as a child, I think that really taken so much that you're not aware of. England is a very interesting place. It's, the head of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
And when we were young, my dad took us to Buckingham Palace and drove us out in the country where the wealthy people live. So he was pretty smart. He exposed us to the elite Brits, and we were living in inner city. So that was another thing. I was having mixed signals. 1 minute at home, we're in the inner city. Next door, sorry, I got neighbors around me.
Okay, so 1 minute you're in the inner city.
Yes. Well, we lived in the inner city, East London, but my dad, he liked to take us driving out of London. So one of the number one towns in England is Cheltenham. That's where the Queen has her second home and all that. So every time we went anywhere, it was always a drive, a long drive, and we'll get exposed to all this other side of England, which is not the side that most people see. It's always to do with royalty and elite and all this. And my dad he was like totally British, like best of British. In Jamaica, England is the parent of Jamaica, right? And all things that was in Jamaica came from England. And they would say, England, the streets are paved with gold. So people have these fantasies, right? Yeah. And then they used to say, I remember when I was in Jamaica, they'd say it's cold and icy. And in Jamaica, we only have blocks of ice like this big. So I just imagine ice falling out the sky.
But you couldn't imagine it, right? Until you got.
But it was cold. It was cold. I remember my first taste of snow. Well, I didn't know that your hands freeze when you grab snow. So I grabbed the snow, man, and I was holding it, and then my hands just froze. I couldn't open the door with my key, and I had to put the key in my mouth.
because your hand was so cold.
So it was like a lot of things, the first time experience of snow, fog, you know, the British police, the actual seeing the Queen, Buckingham Palace. It's a very rich culture and a total contrast from Jamaica.
Yes. And did you ever hear from your grandmother after that?
Only through writing. She actually came back like 10 years later um, to visit, but it was like there was like a divorce later with
Mm-hmm.
my parents, and it's like the family went that way. So she went to visit my mother, not
Yeah.
my dad, and then um, later on she actually came to America here
Oh.
to live with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the bond switched from grandparents to father,
Yes. Yes.
and then a whole nother set of drama happened after that. But early first time in Britain,
Mm-hmm.
it was exciting. I think that's what. Oh yeah, another thing I remember arriving is the smell of gasoline. Right,
Yes.
never smelled pollution before, and it's actually we used to get high.
Gasoline smell.
Yeah, literally, we'd go sniff the exhaust pipe of cars. I was like, yeah.
I never would have thought of that.
It was weird. It was like we used to get high on the smell of exhaust.
Now you're used to fresh air.
Amazing. Yeah, so there's a lot of fun things that happen in that first encounter with Britain
Yeah.
and school as well.
So I want to move forward a little bit in
Yeah.
the story. When you talked about that you had, been in one industry for 20 years and then you hear this voice and the voice says, I want you to, instead of taking the bug out of the computer, I want you to take it out of people.
Mm.
When you heard that, what were your first thoughts?
Well, to be honest with you, I was hearing voices all the time, and I I I think those voices started early in my childhood in Jamaica, because I think my dad was a very not my dad, my grandfather was a very mystical guy, but he never spoke, and but we were always in nature, and for some reason as a child I would wander off by myself. I was a loner. You'd see Nigel in the forest somewhere, right? And I was quite happy. And I think I was guided by that voice, but I didn't hear the voice itself. So one of the distinctions I learned is that if you can hear the voice talking to you, then you're probably disobedient.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's trying to get you back on the right track.
So when I'm on track, when I'm in divine guidance, divine order, I don't hear anything. I just instinctively do things, like you're flowing with it.
Yes.
But if I don't flow with it, I'll hear it say, turn left, turn right. And that means you're not flowing. So I think at the time it had been guiding me, and then I was getting distracted. And somehow it got my attention by saying, you think you're that great? Because I was getting a lot of accolades for my work in this particular company. And I was like, yeah, I'm so great. I was so great that I put on a stage performance in the company itself. And and so that's when I heard the voice, and it was a conflict. It was like, hey, I'm getting all these praises over here and recognition and da da da, and this thing is calling me. It's like, ah. Now a lot of things happened to me on the way in my corporate days, and I realized that a lot of doors opened for me just by trusting my intuition.
Wow.
So by this stage, I had already become familiar with my inner guidance. And so when it spoke to me, it was like we were having a regular dialogue anyway. And I think I would say at that stage, I was willing to be obedient. I was, it was a faith walk. I trusted the spirit at this point. So it wasn't really a conflict, except the money looked good. And also I realized by that stage, I didn't like corporate politics. If I stayed, I'd have to deal with all of that. And I wanted my freedom. I wanted freedom.
Yeah.
And
Freedom.
so spirit said over here. So I'm like, okay, here we go. Yes.
So I'm just wondering if Nigel asked when he heard that voice, you're going to work on people instead of computers. When I think of a computer, I think it's different than a person. So how did you transfer your skills from a machine to a person?
Now, the number one, I like people. So when I was programming, I was good at it because it involved a lot of thinking, but I would always be looking at the person. So one of my gifts is people watching.
Oh.
You know, I can just stare at someone and read them. And that was why I was good at my job, is because I'd walk into a room and in no time I would just feel everybody. And I made it a practice of writing down my first impressions, right? What's my spirit saying about Johnny? Like I'd write a note on everybody. So that skill was on board the people, the gifted reading ability. I didn't see the link between computers and people until later. So I'll show you the link. And it's easier to do today because, computers are pretty much a part of our life now.
Yes.
But at the time, I was working on the inner guts of the computer, the operating system, the hardware. Like I'll be the guy, we take your laptop apart and change the chip on the circuit board, that level of detail. But now there's a parallel between the computer and the human. And this distinction came to me. It's like, and God made man in God's own image, and man made computer in man's own image.
Oh, yes.
Now, because I've been studying computers, I now have the image of man.
Oh, that makes sense.
It does, right? And if I want to study God, I study man, and I'll get the image of God, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to reverse engineer it, we call it. So now, it just came to me intuitively, but when you actually do the math and compare the two, if you get a laptop and a human, you'd see, number one, they both have a body, right? The hardware, the body, and the human body and the computer body. The first thing you'll notice that whenever your computer goes wrong, it's not the hardware.
No,
right?
no, not usually.
So similar, the body, the physical hardware, the body is actually very intelligent and actually works 99% of the time. And even when we think we're sick, that's the body working, right?
Yeah.
If we have a disease, it activates this immune system. The body intelligence is so great that you really don't have to do any work with the body. You just got to not abuse it, period. Just that's it. Just eat and clean it. That's it. It will take care of itself, right?
Yes.
Same with the hardware of the computer. It's self-maintaining. When you press the power button, it knows what to do, keyboard. And so the hardware, it has eyes. So it's like the camera we're using. It has ears, it's listening through the microphone.
Yep.
It has it has more or less everything that the human has. You know, if you put wheels on it, it's called a car with a computer, legs,
Computer
right?
with wheels.
Right. So man designed a computer like a human and the physical computer. Now, the part that the humans transferred as much as possible was the mind, and it's called the processor
Yeah.
on the computer.
Mhm.
And so if you've got a Mac, and in fact, the old Mac used to use a different processor, a Motorola chip, and now the new PCs, they use Intel inside, if you remember
Yes.
things. Well, Intel is the brain of the computer. It's intelligence. Notice that's what the word Intel means, right?
Yeah.
And both the Mac and the PC have the same chip now. And it's just a thinking processor, which we have. But what makes two computers different is the way they think. In other words, the way they're programmed to think.
Yes.
Duh, humans. Everyone has a brain, thinking brain.
Yeah.
And what makes Jamaican different from English is the way a Jamaican mind is programmed and the way an English mind is programmed. But it's still a mind processing,
Yeah.
and it's in the body. The body's the same, you know, there's this variety, right? Color, and just like you want your computer with that, you know, that cover that you can buy for your Mac. You can get pink ones and blue ones. We have pigmentation, so we can look different, and there's female and masculine. It's all superficial. When you peel away the layer, everything else is the same.
Yes.
Exact same, right? So you don't have to figure out too much. Once you figure out one human, you figured out all of them. So that's the good news. All machines are the same. All humans are the same. The hardware works. That's why you don't really need to fix it unless you allow contamination in the body, like eating wrong food, then it will slow itself down. And similar for the body, if we eat junk food, same. So every so often you have to open the computer and clean it up, cleanse the body, blah, 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 right? Mind-wise, the thing that changes thinking is language, programming language. So the good news is Nigel was a programmer back in the days, and we used computer programming language. Human beings think, or the way they think, is totally determined by the way that they were programmed, right, in their language. Americans have a way of thinking because they speak American. Indian people speak Indian language. So that's what we have in common with the machines. We both have programming language.
Yes.
Now, the difference between a computer programming language and a human programming language is the only difference is that the computer doesn't get, well, actually, it's not different at all. It's the same. The computer doesn't get to choose what language it's using.
Right. No, it doesn't.
Like if we type crap in there, it goes, okay, and it just runs it. And then if you load the wrong kind of program in there, it'll crash the computer. Same as humans. We have programming from our childhood environment, and while we're young, we have no choice in how we're being programmed. And
it's just whatever parents, teachers, people around us.
Exactly. And I'm like, this is so parallel. And here's the good news for Nigel. As far as your question is how do you transfer the skills from computer to humans? Guess what? Most, I would say, I'm going to guess 95% of all computer programming language is in English. Right? Apple is English.
Yeah.
Microsoft is English, right? When you hear about computer programming languages, the language is actually a form of English. So I'll give you a clue. It's like a sign, a sample. If not zero, then do this. That's literally a program. If this variable is not equal to zero, then turn on this switch. Do you hear English? It's just, that's programming language. And there's a thing called declaration. Declare this word is equal to this phrase. So heaven equals a blissful place. You can literally program that in a computer. And so when you type heaven, it displays blissful place, right?
Yes.
Humans are exactly the same. Good girl. Oh, I would say so physical hardware, the humans the same. Mental realm, they're the same. And the only where the computer's lacking is the emotional realm. So far, they haven't got computers to feel yet.
No.
At least they're not selling them.
Yes.
They're artificial intelligence, right? But that's what separates a human from a computer, is one of them has emotions. And if you take the emotions away from a human, you just get a machine.
Yes.
And they're called soldiers, and those people that just they do what they're supposed to do.
Stormtroopers.
Huh?
Stormtroopers.
Yeah, or robots. They're like, and you can program people to disconnect their feelings. And I think in boot camp in the army, that's what they actually do. Because humans don't like to kill another human. But if you remove their emotional blah, 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 they will shoot without thinking.
Yes.
So we have physical realm is the same. Mental realm is the same. Spiritual realm is similar. Would you like to hear the parallel between the spiritual realm and the computer?
Yes. What is the connection?
Spiritual realm is the internet.
Oh, okay.
Have you noticed that you have your laptop there and you just turn it on and it just picks up something?
Thankfully it does, yes.
Yeah, without any wires or anything, it just can tell that you're in a Wi-Fi environment. The spirit is everywhere, right? And
it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's so true, though. There's very few places with no internet anymore.
Exactly. And the internet is there. It's just whether your computer can pick it up. That's really the issue.
Oh.
Because the military was the one that invented the internet. And they're everywhere. And then they sold it to the public because they upgraded to a higher version, right? There actually is another internet that the military uses. And it's ubiquitous. And it monitors the real internet, or the public internet. So the point is, depending on how tuned the processor of your computer is, it can pick up the spirit, the internet. And it's the same like a radio, right? You can get a radio and just turn it on, and then it hears a signal. Oh, so it's picking up broadcasts.
Yes.
Human beings are the same. The spirit of God is everywhere. But the question is, am I tuned into it? Is my mind cleared enough to hear the subtle voice that is always talking? You see what I'm saying? And to be honest with you, if it's talking, it means that you're listening but not obeying. Because really, the internet, when it's talking to the Mac, like this Mac here, it just talks to it and says, listen, this is an upgrade. And the Mac goes, okay, upgrade. And it downloads the software. It doesn't talk. I'm rebooting.
The computer doesn't say, I don't want an upgrade right now.
Right, exactly. It's like, I'm upgrading. It doesn't have a discussion with the internet. Whereas that option is available to humans. Like God is talking, saying, I don't know if I want to do that. I like feelings. I like dealing with my senses. I like being in the world. So the spiritual realm is the equivalent of the internet. So with that in mind, programming, hardware, internet, I can deal with humans very easily.
Wow.
And
So,
that,
yeah. Oh, I was just going to ask another question. I thought you were doing good with that, but
yeah.
that's what I was going to ask next. So tell me how this activation of change angels happens. How do you do
Very good. Very good. Very good link, actually.
it?
So I discovered it. All right. Now, when I left my corporate job, and started helping people, my approach was I was doing exactly what I was doing in my corporate job. I was one of the testers. And when they build software, you have to test it to see if the software is doing what you programmed it to do. Because if it doesn't, it's called a bug. And there's the testing departments, all we do is find bugs. And then we report it to the designer, and they go, we have a bug fix. And then you download the next version, which has fixed all these bugs, and then we test it again, and we find another bug. So it's a continuous thing. And each time you find a bug, the quality of the software gets better. So on this Mac here, I don't know, we're on 12 point something, right? The reason why we have these different versions is because they keep finding bugs. And they fix the bug, and they go, here's an upgrade. Upgrade just means less bugs.
Less bugs. No
Right?
one's bugs.
There's always bugs. Right? I always tell people, like, we're on iPhone 10, I think, or 11, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? It's because iPhone 9 had a bug. And why do we? Because iPhone 8 had a bug. Right? And all the way.
Bug. Just passing the bug.
No. We're fixing the bugs. We're discovering
it.
them. And when we discover and fix a bug, we have an upgrade.
Right.
So when you upgrade, it just means this version has more bugs than this version. And then upgrade. See, so the more you remove bugs, is the better the software gets.
Yes.
Right?
Makes sense.
And ultimately, when there is no bugs, the machine will do infinity. Like, it will just do all things. It'll become God, right? Similarly, well, look at this now. A human being is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
When we're babies, we come in pure. Like, the memory is clear and clean. The mind is available for programming. And depending on the bug in the programming language will determine how well that baby sees the world and operates, right?
Right.
So so the baby actually comes in straight out of heaven, from the factory.
From the factory.
Straight out of the factory from heaven. And the baby is looking around pure, like, has no judgment. Everything is perfect as far as the baby's concerned. And as soon as the hardware starts working, like legs, the baby actually thinks it's Superman or superhuman. And so the baby just climbs up on the table and wants to jump off.
Yes.
No, baby, come on. Grabs the baby. No. And the baby looks at mom walking and says, I can do that. And starts walking and then falls over, right?
Yes.
But the baby's mind thinks all things are possible.
Yes, and they don't give up. I have a 10-month-old baby at my house right now.
Right.
They just go for anything they want.
They see it and they think it's possible. They have no limitations. Know what that's called? God. Right? A baby is God on earth, full of total 100% possibility, power, and thing. And it's in this hardware. Okay, what's this? The baby's like, what is this? Why is it limiting me?
Yeah.
I know I could, right? It's like this thing. It's like, why it's like the baby's annoyed by the hardware.
Yes.
I'm in this limited form.
Yes.
Okay, so I was like, okay, I guess I have to develop this thing. Oh, it turns out my mind has something to do with the development of the hardware or the use of it, master it. So now, okay, so if you never taught a baby how to speak, it would just jump off. You know, you've seen a little 2-year-old, they get on the table and they jump.
Just jump off. My youngest daughter used to do that. She'd look at me and say, I'm going to be fine, Mom. And she'd be on the counter about to jump. I'm fine, Mom. Don't worry. I'm going to jump now.
Exactly. And this is when this is after they have language. Before that, they're like, oh, fire. They just grab it,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Babies have no fear, no limits, nothing. And they're like, okay, I guess Mom's trying to tell me. Some baby is trying to communicate with these adults. Are you there?
Yes. I lost you for a minute. So you were talking about the baby reaching for fire. And then.
Oh, yes. And so from a baby's point of view, all things are possible. And there is no limitations, period, except for the body that it's becoming aware of. It's in this limited body. And it's like, oh, that's why you see they're always doing this jerky movement. And so like, what is this thing holding me back? It's called your body. You got to get used to it. Oh, I guess I'm on Earth, right? Okay, all right. But as far as the baby's concerned, there is no limit. And then mom, there's a bond, right, with the parent. Yeah. No language, but there's a bond and a connection. There's pure love.
Yes.
And for some reason, they're making noises. Oh, coochie, coochie, baby, baby, blah, blah, blah. And they talk to each other in this strange language. Okay, I got to figure that out, what they're talking about. What is that? Some sort of communication language. And so the mom or the parent, right, they want the baby to talk. And the baby's like, I'm talking. Gaga, right?
Yes, anything that sounds close to mama is like praised.
Well, we think they're not talking because they're only making one sound. Literally, and then it might go, So by the way, is the primordial language, and with the mouth closed, the ultimate spiritual language, right?
Yes.
So babies have that on entry. So then we got God with us, God talking, but parents have forgotten original spiritual language. So I guess we're going to have to speak to them in their language, right?
Right.
Mama, oh mama. You see? You notice you automatically say ma?
Yes.
It's automatic sound. Ma, mama, ma. Okay, mama, oh, and she's happy. Okay, great. Mama, mama. Right? That's the first word they learn.
Yes, it is.
It is also the mother of all language, the sound, mother sound. So baby has it and like, oh, she likes that. And so then they realize that there's all these subtle sounds, yow, you see? And if you move your mouth around, the sound changes. And that combination of all those little different modulation on is called language. And then you see how you're nodding? It means we agree that this sound equals this thing. Ma means me. Amma, mama, mama.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
That's exactly how it sounds when my granddaughter says it.
Amma, right?
Yes. It doesn't sound like mama. It sounds just like you said. Oh, ma.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then they're like, oh, they messed up the language. The baby's saying that. We got to say, mama. Okay, that's going to take some work. We got to do some practice now. All right. So the baby starts learning and makes mistakes, errors.
Yes.
Right. So first version, mama, 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 mama. Okay, upgrade. That was an upgrade.
Yes.
And every time there's an upgrade, the baby installs a new software. Now, then, because the input thing, the ears are working so well, they can take in language while it's happening and process it subconsciously.
Mm.
That CPU can figure it out without you telling them anything. So if you want a baby to learn 8 languages, just drop them in 8 countries in 1 year, and they'll have 8 languages installed, because that CPU is as fast as God can go.
Wow.
With me, it's the ultimate processor. Now, as language comes in, this is where again, the parallel between computer and humans and activation comes in. As language comes in, what we're actually doing is deactivating the human. Remember, the baby comes in as God, thinking all things are possible. And then as they're doing stuff like climbing on the table, jumping off, they hear this sound, don't, no. And they were like, what?
Yes, don't you know? Yes, the big words. Yeah.
Don't do that, Johnny. That's not safe. And baby's like, what are you, what? You know, ignore that. Like, that's an error. The baby's thinking that's an error. And as soon as they are like, we got to communicate this to these adults because they just don't get it. So we need language as fast as possible. Ah, we found a good word. No.
It's faster than don't.
Yep. No. The baby says that word second after mama. No.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is, and as there's an angel from heaven, like, you're wrong. Don't, Johnny, walk beside me. No. It's called a terrible twos, right?
Yes.
Baby is like, listen, everything is doable. What's wrong with you? Well, don't do that. No. And then they start running around like crazy. Stop trying to limit me.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I was just gonna add to that. My daughter, her baby's the 10-month-old. When she went to the pediatrician last time, she said she's about the age where she's going to start misbehaving, and she said she actually told her, "Don't use the word no." So maybe this pediatrician learned something somewhere along the way.
Very good, because what the purpose of language in a computer and in a human computer is to limit the processor. So when you get the work I was doing, we'd get a blank Intel chip, and the fastest chip with tons of memory. And there's a thing called blowing in the memory. Like, we'd write a program and we want the computer just to do this and this. That's it. Just do that. It could do this, but we don't want it to do that. We want it to do this. So the first thing we were doing was flying, and we did the Airbus. You heard of the Airbus A320? It was the first aircraft to be flown by a computer, passenger aircraft. And so we got an Intel chip, and that chip can do anything, but we want it to raise the landing gear. And this is all the landing gear does. So that's all we want you to do. We don't want you to do anything else. And you raise it up. When we press the word up, click up, it goes down, right? That's it.
Yes.
To make that computer just do that, you have to limit it. No,
So
you cannot
language limit.
spin yeah, you cannot spin the landing gear. You cannot do a roll. I know all things are possible.
The passengers wouldn't want the plane to be rolling.
Well, exactly. We're
To
not going to allow.
complain.
So the number one word that's in a programming language is the word not
Mm.
in actual computer language. NOT is it's called binary, and it controls what the computer cannot do. It's not what it can do, it's what cannot do. So similar, baby is looking like baby looks next door, and there's a child over there, and the baby runs over to talk to the child. No, you cannot talk to that child. When we got to England, the white people were not allowed to talk to the black people.
Ah,
No, do not talk to them. They're strange, right? Not this programming language, right? So I see it clearer now because I've had 20 years of English, but at the time, I just knew that people were malfunctioning,
yeah.
right? I'm like, okay, from my discipline, we say we want to fly a computer on a computer. We want a plane to be flown by a computer. We go, yeah, sure, let's do that. And then we design it and make it happen. I go, hey, let's, you know, get you, raise some money. Oh, I can't do that. I'm like, what? I don't know how to do that. I can't do that because I don't. And I'm like, that's when I open the hood. Like, the software is not working right. Let me have a look at this software. Why is it telling me it cannot do that? And right. And so this is where your question was about how does activation work, right?
Yes.
Um, the the long way of saying it is that human beings were born fully all things are possible. And as we learn language, we deactivate all things are possible. We narrow it down to what we think we can do or what we're programmed to do. You see that?
So we're limiting it. We're limiting
Language does that.
the language,
Programming.
what we can do.
So to activate somebody, you have to go in there, mess with the language, and and it will go back to. So activation is almost deactivating the language, if that makes sense. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So since I've been learning from you, you have um, me practicing with virus, being alert to virus words.
Words. Okay. So let me tell you. So just to clarify, and then we'll get to the viruses because that's related to activation.
Okay.
Turns out that human beings are like volcanoes. Like at under every mountain, there's an active volcano. But because of the rocks and everything that's sitting on top of it, it's limiting the expression of that volcano. They're like, oh, that mountain is not active, but you just haven't got deep enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's rocks all over it. Similarly, human beings are gods with language keeping them locked in. So to activate the god, you gotta debug or remove the limiting program, right? So my company that I started when I began is called Mastery Unleashed.
Yeah. Mm.
Right? So this language is like a leash. It limits the mind. All language does that. And it limits it to whatever you want it to do. So we get that programming in school. What do you want to be, Kimberley? I want to be an optometrist. Okay, we have to limit you to just that. But God wants me to do everything. No, focus, right?
Focus. Yes. Just on one thing, focus.
And what we're going to do is give you the programming language of an optometrist. 7 years minimum to program that thing in, because your mind wants to do everything, and that language like, nope, you will do this. And we're going to clear your mind of all other options so that when you wake up out of bed, oh, your identity, when you press the power button, you go, oh, I'm an optometrist.
Yes.
I do this, right? Now, the internet that you're connected to says, no, you are an empty vessel. You do what we install today.
Yeah.
And we can install 7 programs in you simultaneously because your processor can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm an optometrist, right? See? And your processor wants to expand, but your language keeps locking you down. So what Nigel discovered is that if I could go in and see how the language is structured, right?
Mm-hmm.
How is programming installed? I can uninstall it, and as soon as I remove the language, the processor starts expanding again. And that is activation. When you remove the thing, like if you poke a hole in a mountain, volcano will come out.
Yeah.
And we say the mountain is active or activated.
Yes.
So I am not activating, I'm allowing power and greatness to come out. So that's why my real company is unleashing, and the lava is called greatness. Now, does that make sense? What I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Activation, and then but what is it that limits it? Is the language. And what I learned from language and computers is that, I don't know if you heard of binary programming.
Yes.
That was the original computer language, 1 and 0, 1 and 0. So if you watch any computer data, it's 1 0 1 1 1 0 0, and we see that in the matrix. Well, that's whatever high-level language they're using, it comes down to binary, 1 and 0.
Mm-hmm.
In computer language, that 0 is called not.
Oh, 0 is called not.
Yes. And 1 represents possibility, and 0 represents no possibility, right?
Possibility and not possibility.
Right. Now, the thing is, there is actually no 0 in real life.
There's no 0 in real life? Tell me more about that.
This is where it gets a little deep.
I feel like I've been using zeros a lot in math when I went to school.
No, okay.
I use them at work. So
Okay, here we go. If we think about the internet, how much is out there?
So much is out there.
Infinity, right? Every piece of info. The spirit is like that. The spirit is infinite in nature. But, I mean, you can't really do much. You can't put the whole internet into your computer. It's not very useful.
No.
So we have to narrow down our search, right? The more narrow we go into the search, the internet is, the more useful it is. How do you narrow down the infinite? You have to invent this thing called not. That gives the illusion that life is like that. But all it is saying, if you imagine this is the real picture and you put blinkers on,
Yeah.
not is this thing right here that prevents you from seeing everything over here. And not is over here. Because of these 2 knots, I get a frame.
Right.
See?
You have like a frame around your eyes or what you're seeing, or you have like a blinders on both sides.
Well, no, we have a frame. It's better to call it a frame, like a glasses, right? You get a frame, and it provides a window of what you're allowed to see. But there's still stuff out here.
Yes.
But the frame tells you that's all there is. Does that make sense now?
Yeah, that is.
The thing that builds the frame is this word not. So everything is available, but not this, not that, and not, you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
The word, N-O-T, creates a frame or a mold through which you can see. And depending on how much not there is. If there's a lot, then it goes like this. If there's less, it goes like that.
So it gets smaller, gets larger, depending on what you're looking at and how much you
How
let
much
in.
knots? No, it depends on how much knots I include. So the knot is like a frame.
The knot is like a frame. So the more knots you have, the smaller the frame.
Yes.
And the less knots you have, the bigger your frame.
The frame. Exactly. I see the dot.
That makes total sense to me. So as an optometrist, I specialize in vision therapy, and we would do visual field tests to see how much of a frame or visual field someone had. And we were doing special visual fields, not medical necessarily, but to see how someone was performing. And the people that had very small ones, like a telescope, when we expanded them with therapy, their behavior changed, their self-esteem went up, everything changed when we expanded their vision and what they could see. So that
how did you expand the vision?
Well, I did something called syntonics, which is light therapy, and then I did other types of therapy that worked with the eyes and the brain and
Right.
physical movement to get them actually opening up their visual field.
Right. Now it's good. So it's like you're working on the hardware, right?
Yes.
But you're also working on the software of how they think.
Oh, yes. It worked on everything, even at the spiritual level.
Very good.
Yes.
Now, it turns out this frame determines reality.
Yes, it does.
And the thing that determines the frame is the knots, right? Or another way of saying 1 and 0 in computer, like 1 is light, is literally light.
1 is light.
Yes, and 0 means block the light.
Okay, so it's just covering the light.
Huh?
The 0 is covering the light, so it
yes,
keeps shining
yes. It's yes. So there is no such thing as 0. There's just a stuff. A 0 is light blocked. And that's what a frame does, right? It just blocks light.
Yes.
But otherwise, there's light everywhere.
Yes, there is. There's light everywhere, and sometimes I block it.
Yes, and it's conscious. When I'm consciously blocking it, it's called focus or laser or beam, right? We're narrowing down our focus. But if you just let it expand, you'll see everything while field of vision. And the human being has the choice of what frame and how much of it I allow. When I'm aware that I have a frame.
Yes.
If I'm not aware that I have a frame, I think this is it, man.
Yes.
The world is always like this.
Yes.
And I don't even know I have a frame. That's how the world looks. No, the world could look like this. It could be 3-dimensional if you change your frame.
Yes.
So it turns out that language creates the frame. Yes?
Yes. So how do we expand our frame?
You have to be able to deal with the thing that creates it. And what is it that creates frames? Language. And now once you're looking at language, you have to look at how language is constructed. Like, I am Kimberley. Really? That's a frame.
Yes, yeah, it is a frame.
What if we took away one of those words, Kimberley? What would you get?
I am.
Good. And that leaves all things possible to be anything you say. So that word, Kimberley, just put a frame on you.
Huh. That makes sense.
Does that make sense? So what I started seeing now, the word is creating the experience of reality. The word.
So whatever I speak is creating what the frame.
Yes, how much light is coming through. So that's why in meditation and spiritual work, they say, don't speak. You with me? Now you're letting in as much as possible.
Because there's no language to limit.
There's no framing.
There's no framing.
Yes. Or there's always some framing because subconscious language is happening.
Yes.
But the decision making daily is based on conscious, like I'm going to the shops today, you see? And then you go, I'm conscious of that. But there's subconscious things we do, like I'm tired, man. I'm just, right? And I wake up at 7:30 or whatever. That is a frame happening without my awareness.
Yes.
So I'm sure there are modalities that allow you to go in there and adjust the subconscious frames, right?
Yes.
Those ones determine a lot more than the conscious frame. Now, so we're cool on language creates frames. Frames limit reality.
Yes.
In reality, in truth, then, there is no limit to reality. It all depends on the frame that you have around your mind and how much light it's letting through, right? So now, Nigel, so when I started this work, I knew I would listen. Actually, I'd look at the performance. I'd say, let's do this. And when I was working for the corporate, they'd say, we're going to build an airplane that flies by computer. We go, yeah, let's do that. And we just go in the lab and create it. Design it, code it, build it, test it. That's how all engineering things work.
Yes.
Space shuttle, aircraft, telephones, principle. Imagine it, draw it out, code it out, prototype it, test it, sell it. That's how everything works. Design is an imagination, right? So I go up to somebody and like, hey, when are you going to get your new house? Okay, do that. They can't even visualize it.
Yes.
The frame doesn't even allow them to see. So I'm like, whoa, somebody's put a programming. That frame is too tight, man.
Yes. It's too tight. You can't see your new house.
Yeah. So let's go and change the frame by unprogramming the frame.
Yes.
And in order to do that, you have to understand programming language. And in programming language, it comes down to one single word. What is that? Not.
Not.
Every programming language has not as the master word. So if you can go into a word, any sentence or program or language, and take that out, you can expand the frame just by one word.
Wow. Just one word. Not.
One single word. So the way I discovered this, now I'm teaching it the way it is, but how I discovered it is a bit of a story. Do we have time for that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So I answer the calling. I start working with humans, and I lift up the hood, and I'm like, this how when I lift up the hood, I'm actually looking at how their language is working. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't have any money. I can't. And I'm like, everyone is talking this way, especially in the city of Oakland, especially my peoples, right? They're like, dude, I'm like, I was privileged that I had elite exposure in England.
Yes.
And elite exposure in America. So I don't think I had the normal experience, either white or black, right?
Right.
I'm just like, everything's doable.
Yeah.
But I wanted to help my peoples because they seem to be at the bottom of the pile. So I'm like, what's wrong with you? And I didn't say that, but I was like, this software isn't working right.
Yeah.
And so I instantly went into debug mode, right? And I still couldn't figure out what was going on. So the epiphany happened when I was, about 3 months of helping people. I was making no progress. Everybody was broke and everybody wanted help. And I was physically doing the work and spending the money to help them, right? Because I had it. And they came to me. It's like, oh, Nigel, can you help me? Like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't do that. Don't have any money. I'm like, okay, let me help you.
Yeah.
And I did that for 3 months. And I was like, man, if I keep this up, I'm going to go broke. So anyway, one day I went to bed and I woke up in the middle of a dream.
Uh-huh.
Have you woken up in a dream? Like you're
Yeah.
actually awake in that dream. And a scene from The Matrix happened. I don't know if you remember The Matrix, but basically Neo was sleeping and then somebody started typing on his computer.
Yes.
And I'm wake up and the voices, whoever they were, now they became 7 voices, pull the screen down in front of me like I'm watching a big PowerPoint screen. And they start typing the phrase, I don't have any money. I don't know how. And they just kept on repeating, I don't have any money. I don't know how. And it's a black screen with white writing. I'm like, what am I watching? There's just kept on, like,
I'm having some trouble hearing you.
Oh. Is that any better?
Try. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying the screen just kept on replaying, I don't know how, I don't have any money, I don't know how. And then I heard them talking behind the screen, like the narrator, and they're like, make it flash. And then the word don't started flashing.
Yes.
I don't have any money, I don't have money. And then they underlined it. I don't have any money, I don't know how. And then it's like they're saying he's not getting it, right? And then because they're flashing that word, and literally they took it off, the word don't. And it had, I have money, I know how. And they put it back in, I don't have any money. And now they're alternating. And then I got it.
Wow.
That's the bug. That's interfering with humans. The word don't.
The word don't.
And I literally woke up in the dream, and I realized I was having a dream. And I think there's this thing called Eureka, right? The Eureka moment, and
Yes.
where apparently the guy ran down the street with no clothes on saying, I got it, I found it. I wanted to do that in the middle of the night because I think that was my quest, to find the bug that was interfering with humans. And I found it. And so I had this word don't.
Yes.
And I started telling everybody, there's a bug that interferes with the human mind and makes them talk funny and act limited. And they're like, huh? What you talking about? Everybody looked at me strange. I said, okay, let's do something impossible. And I'd say, okay, let's manifest $1,000 right now. And I don't know how to do that. There's the bug.
Yes.
And they couldn't see the bug. I'm like, the bug, say it again. I don't know how to do that. And their body would do something strange as well. You see that? The act. And I'd say, that's the bug, and I'd laugh. And then I would never tell them. And then they would see it, and they're like, I said, take it out. And they go, I have money, I can do that. No, I can't. I said, I saw the second one, can't. Right? And it's like, wait a minute. This is weird. As soon as you take the bug out, there's immediate possibility and then immediate withdrawal.
Yes.
With using another virus word, can't. So I started noting all these words, right? And I got that list. That's where the virus list came from. I started looking at the word that shut it down. And then I noticed that I showed it to an angel friend, and then I'm thinking about her name. And She said, Nigel, the word isn't don't, it's not. I'm like, whoa. And the word don't is actually two words, do and not.
Doing that.
Yes. And so I said, well, if you take the word don't out, you get I can do that, or I do know how to do that, you see?
Yes.
And the doing is the action word. And when you put a not on an action word, it makes the body does weird things. It's like, who? And in programming language, we call that a software bug. The hardware will do something weird. Your screen will crash whenever it hits a word like that. It doesn't, what? It doesn't know what to do with it. That's not in the vocabulary. And so I realized these words like don't, can't, they're actually made up of two words. And then it occurred to me that this is how the HIV virus works. There's this, I think, this HIV itself. Or what is it? There's some, AIDS. There's AIDS and HIV. This virus by itself doesn't actually do anything. But if it attacks or infects the active, defensive, what I call immune cells, then you get this weird thing. And then it attaches itself to other good cells. And before you know it, your whole immune system is compromised.
Yes.
This not word does the same thing. Once it gets into the mind, it attaches itself to all active words and shuts down all capacity, including hearing, seeing, thinking. The process is shrinking exponentially. And the way it gets in is from language. So, wow, I'm like, wow, we've got to figure out a way to protect the mind from the incoming. Because once it gets in by any means necessary, it will infect the whole thing. And it likes to go to the root of the operating system. You know what the root of the operating system for a human is? Their identity. I am. I am God is what the baby's saying. But if you put the word not in there, you get I'm not God. I'm just to this. I'm not that great. I'm not. And it's the root of all limitation is what I think I'm not. I'm not capable. I'm not. You notice all this I am is always there. And that just happens to be the name of God.
Yes.
So the virus's job is to deny my identity as God. So a human being is God in denial.
That's really deep.
To deny something is say, I'm not that.
We were, made in the image of God. And
image means replica. Like you see God, you see me. Jesus said it, right? But if you add this virus to it, you'll get this weird thing called human or victim. And so I literally started debugging. That's all I did. And as I debugged, the language changed, right? And I started noticing that there's subtle words like trying is a word, and there's an actual feeling in the body when I say these words. And wow, I'm like, whoa, I'm onto something. So as I'm debugging now, removing virus words, the person's mind is expanding. They're seeing more. They're having ahas. The only thing is, as soon as they go back in the environment where that limiting language is, they reinfect. And so I'm like, okay, I've got to create an environment that prevents the reinfection. Oh dear, the majority of the people on Earth speak virus language. And then I started noticing how class systems were created. In England is a class-driven society, right?
yes.
The bottom of the food chain is peasants. Nobody talks about them, but they exist. Then there's working class, middle class, known as professionals, and ruling class. Actually, there's a legal class and then the ruling class. And it turns out that word class means programming environment. What classroom did you spend your time in? What school did you go to? And the elites go to a special class in England. You know that? I don't know if anyone knows that.
Yeah.
That there are actually classes, meaning economic or social class, but the elites do not go to the same schools as anyone else. And the ones that we're familiar with is Oxford, Cambridge, Eton, right? Eton is the school. You have to be from a certain class to get into Eton. But here's the thing, and then there's kindergarten for that class. This is what made the dots connect for me. You know what they call when you send your little son, who's 3 years old, to the elite schools, guess what they call his title is?
What do they title him?
Master.
Master.
Master Nigel. Little 4-year-old Nigel. Master Nigel, welcome to school. Guess what the title of his teacher is?
Master teacher?
Yes, it's like, I'm your schoolmaster, and I'll be teaching you, Master Nigel. So master to master. And then guess what the principal's name is?
You'll have to tell me.
Headmaster.
Headmaster.
So what kind of school do you think that child is going to? The School of Masters.
Yes.
And this is real. This is England. And they're the 1%ers. And they rule. What does rule mean? They have no limits placed on them. So they teach them a different version of English. It's called ruling class English. And there are certain words that they never say. And a common usage, they'll say one does this and one does that. They use the word one, which is the same as the word I.
Yes.
Right? And it's a way of speaking, and they're like, oh, Nigel, you speak so la-di-da. Oh, yes, one. And they carry themselves in a certain posture, but they're also being groomed to rule the country straight from childhood. So wait a minute. So everybody else is programmed to be less than, and these are programmed to be true. So what I discovered is that the master is the original version of human, and everything below that is a downgrade.
Yeah.
And as long as people agree to be downgraded, they remain there. And that's why it's difficult to change your class, right? Because there's so much agreement. So the key word should be said classroom. So depending on what classroom you program a child in will determine what frame they operate with, and therefore how they operate in society. So I realized my job is to restore all people back to the master. Hence, my company is called Mastery Unleashed. Then I named myself Master Nigel. I named all my clients masters. And then I developed a whole curriculum called the Mastery Performance Curriculum. And it has, Angel Kimberley knows, is heavily based on the programming language, right? Yeah. Being aware and choosing the language that I allow in my mind and what I use to help others, to program others. And as I've discovered now, all these therapies and different modalities, they're actually based on thinking or subconscious thinking, which is always done in language.
Yes.
So once I'm down here at the core, where I'm messing with the single words that make up the sentences, therapy is a collection of sentences, and each sentence is a collection of words, and each word, one of them is a knot. If I can just mess with that single word, I can change the whole therapy program. That's when I did that from 2000 to 2005. And then I was like, well, people say, Nigel, what do you do? And they say, you sound like a coach. I'm like, what's a coach? So, you kind of help people. So I said, well, I'm a master coach. But I didn't know that was a title in coaching. I just said I coach masters.
Yes.
if you're going to give me that word. And it was mainly because of the way I saw people. And then I discovered the word master means the original version. It's not even about a human.
Mhm.
It's art. Is you get the master is the original painting of
Original.
the artist. So we're the original version that God made. And so when I say someone's a master, I'm seeing beyond their frame. I'm like, you gotta call it out. If I say Kimberley, Master Kimberley versus Kimberley, that master activates the original. And people are like, I'm not a master, I'm not perfect, I'm not this, and they use the not word to start limiting their frame. So I said, take the not out, and you get, I'm perfect, I'm da-da-da. So the truth is, we are actually perfect, infinite, everything already, except when we say we're not. Hence, the focus on not.
So, Nigel, we just have a few minutes left.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And you have gone so deep here. I know the first time I had a conversation with you, um, I thought about it for a very long time afterward.
You had a
So,
headache.
so it was even a little bit of a headache because my brain was working so hard. So, what I'd like to do is, if you can just give your best advice, you've taught so much here, but give your best advice on how one can live an incredible life. What does that entail?
Okay, great. Um, my definition of an incredible life is one where I'm free to be everything that my heart desires, to live according to my heart's desire. Like, I'd love that. In fact, that's a sign that I'm having incredible. I love that. So it could be a life of love, right? Where everything is love. Now, how do I get that? The first thing is to get to know who I really am. And that is, I am the exact image of the Creator. That's my truth. And start there, start from the inside out. I am God. I'm not in love with God. I'm not connected to God. I am. Wow, you'll be in love, trust me. And then notice what part of my mind wants to deny that. Notice it. As soon as I say I'm God, I'm like, woo, I'm not. I don't think so, Nigel. I'm not all that. I'm not that. You see? And notice I'm noticing that. So stay with that. Start off with, I am the greatest thing that there is. And then imagine the world that I would create from being that.
Yes.
And write it down. Allow the imagination can transcend the frame. I can go outside of my frame and imagine a world of infinity and write down whatever I imagine. And then I'll be back in reality. All my frame is like, okay, that's nice, but this is, and then what will happen is I bump into these frames, right?
Yes.
In the pursuit of my fantasy, I'll bump into reality like the baby was doing, like, why is my body restricting me? Okay, that's the inquiry. What is this about? What is this? Why am I here? And then examine my frame.
Mm.
Go and see Dr. Kimberley and have her tell you, I want a bigger frame because I have a big vision.
Yes.
I need to see more things, right? So start with who I am, full, unlimited being, God in a body. Vision, see a greater possibility, the greatest possibility that I can see, greatness as in all its forms, life, health, relationship. Then write it down because it might disappear because reality is going to set in very quickly. And then go for it and bump into the frame And when I bump into a frame, the way that I break down a frame is by asking questions. And most people ask questions like, why am I bumping in the frame? How do I break the frame? We don't recommend any of those questions. We recommend asking a single question: who? Who is an expert on frame destruction? So I highly recommend Dr. Kimberley here. She does it visually, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And that's what I recommend. Visualize, start with identity, see big, bump into your friend, ask who, get help from an angel. Angels come directly from heaven, Dr. Kimberley, and they are here to help humans to see better. That's why they have so much light coming out of them. They have the biggest frame possible. So that would be my recommendation. I hope that was clear.
Yes, thank you, Nigel, Master Nigel. And if one would like to connect with you, learn more about you, what you do, do coaching with you, how
I recommend going to I've started a movement called Greatness Activation. So people can get in touch with me by going to greatnessactivation.com. And from there, they'll see my story. They can click in and subscribe, and then, or just call me. There's a place to schedule. It's the beginning. I'm about greatness and unleashing it on the planet so that we can all experience the incredible life that is actually here. And also, you can contact Dr. Kimberley, and she will connect you with me. All right. I think that's at greatnessactivation.com.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Master Nigel. And thank you for being on the podcast today and for all your wisdom. And I know that people will be thinking about this for days, because I know whenever I speak with you, I learn so much and I grow so much. So just thank you for what you're doing for the planet, for the people around, and just helping people expand their greatness. And
yes,
just good luck on your journey as you continue on.
Thank you, Dr. Angel Kimberley, for being a light in the world and for having this show that will touch so many people, for attracting more angels and unleashing the greatness on the planet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nigel. We'll talk to you soon.